Hey everybody, it's Cobalt here, and welcome back to another video. Today, I want to talk about LPS Con, specifically LPS Con 24, because even though I personally had a fun time at the event, it was handled very poorly, and in hindsight, there was a lot of dangerous stuff that went on, and I think stuff that really needs to improve if people are going to continue attending this event in the future. And when I say that, that includes people like myself attending in the future. I also want to make a personal apology because recently, before attending the event, I put together a video sort of telling you guys what to expect and telling you guys how to prepare, and I had only been one other time before, which was last year in 2023, and 2024 in a lot of ways is kind of the complete opposite of what I experienced in 2023, so my video on what to expect probably didn't really help very much considering how different it was, and I know that's obviously not my fault, but I still wanted to apologize for that anyways. And of course in this video I'm going to be talking about my own personal experience despite not having a terrible time, but I want to talk about some things that personally affected me as well as some things that I saw, but I will not be naming any names here because I just don't want to speak for other people. Down below in the description, I also have a link to a Google form that was put together by LPS Natalie so that you guys can fill out your own experience, compile complaints, and so that we can work to figuring out ways to improve this event in the future and actually making a difference here. Because an event full of LPS creators and people who share this interest is legitimately the funnest thing in the world, but the way LPS Con was handled, and in hindsight the way it's been handled in the past, really is not the way that we should be going about this. So this is basically just going to be me sitting here and talking unscripted, although I do have a list of things that I want to cover in this video. If that's not personally something that you're interested, you can step out. That is perfectly fine. But without further ado, let's get right on into the conversation about this. I'm going to start off just by saying that as far as I know, I'm a neurotypical person and I don't have any like physical disabilities or anything like that. Although something that I do want to say is last year when I was attending the event, it wasn't that great of an experience just because I was going through some health stuff that really affected me mentally, which is personally why I had a lot more fun this year because I didn't have to worry about that. But I'm just thinking like if I had that happening to me this year, I would have had an absolutely miserable time and all of the things that were handled so poorly would have made that 100 times worse. So I just feel so bad for anybody who experienced negative hardships like that and weren't properly accommodated for. Alright, so when I first got to the event, I got there probably 5 to 10 minutes early, and they did not actually open the doors until 5 to 10 minutes after they were supposed to start the event, and we were waiting outside. Last year, the event for content creator pass holders started at 8, but this time it started at 11, which meant standard attendees were not getting there till 1, so me waiting in line in the super hot Vegas weather would have been so much worse if I had been there later in the day. There was basically no shade outside aside from the very front of the venue, but the line obviously stretched past that, and I didn't even realize, but the venue that this is being held at is by Fremont Street, which is not a great place in Vegas, especially for children, and since LPS are kids' toys, the event is also heavily advertised towards kids, and like as an adult, this is something that I just overlook, but I just don't understand in general why anybody would take a kid to Vegas, not only because of how hot it is, but also because of the things that you see in Vegas. But I digress. Waiting outside, it was very hot. I was very, very worried that my customs were going to melt. Luckily, I didn't have to stand out there for too long, so once I was finally inside, I was able to make sure that they were all okay, and they definitely were. It was also stated that you weren't allowed to bring in food or water, and that there was going to be a bag check, but they did not check well enough, so I very easily could have snuck in food and water, which I wish I did because I have never been to a convention before that has not allowed you to do those things. Outside of my one prior time to being at LPS Con, I have been to different Comic-Cons several times, and even though they have spaces inside where they are selling food and water, you are also allowed to bring in any snacks that you want or water bottles, and there's still a bag check, and there is generally better security. I honestly wouldn't really compare LPS Con to an actual convention like that. It's more of just a giant meetup, but it definitely needs to be handled more in a way like a normal convention would be if you are actually calling it a convention. I have absolutely no idea what the building capacity is, but there was over 1,000 people this year, which is a lot more than last year, and I noticed the LPS Con Instagram account would repeatedly say that LPS Con tickets had sold out or that they were about to sell out, but then they would renew with more and more, and I feel like that was pushing capacity. I'm not going to back that up with screenshots. I'm too lazy to edit that. If you don't believe me on that, that's fine. I don't care, but I'm sure that other people have noticed that as well. So even if that was still under capacity, the problem is I assume the building capacity includes the entire 3-story building, and the thing is that the majority of people were on the first floor because you are not allowed to access the other 2 floors without the content creator or VIP pass, which is very strange because supposedly there were also vendors on the 3rd floor, and I don't understand why you would not be able to visit the vendors on the 3rd floor. I understand the content creator passes being needed to access the workshops because that's a little exclusive piece of the event, but all vendors should have access to all customers. I personally did not even realize that there were vendors on the 3rd floor, and I never even made it up to the 3rd floor just because there was so much chaos, and I was trying to sell my stuff. I was trying to find my friends so that I could meet them, and I really didn't have too much time at the event itself to hang out with them. Again, I personally had a really fun time at the event. I had so much fun meeting everybody, but everywhere I looked, I saw somebody who looked so stressed out. I'm sorry, I do have to call out Puppy Lover 863 because I saw her and oh my god, Daisy, you look so stressed, and I wanted to say hi to you, but I was like, I just got to leave her alone. She's got stuff to do. But generally, staff was not accommodating at all, and were not there to support their attendees or the people that were making the event what it is and giving them the workshops that LPS Con hosts. Another huge thing that I personally saw that I think is absolutely not okay is the lack of accessibility. There are quite a few people in the LPS community who are autistic, and the way that the event was set up was definitely not friendly towards autistic people this year in particular as well, because of how many people there were and all of the overstimulating loud noises and everything like that. Again, I personally can't speak on what that feels like, but I did notice a lot of people were talking about that, so I figured I would bring that up as well. But something that was a lot easier for me to notice were people who were actually at the event using disability aids. I saw several people with wheelchairs and also at least one person walking with crutches, and the way that the main floor was set up in particular this year, which was different from last year, made it very difficult for an able-bodied person like myself to walk around, so I can't imagine how difficult it must have been to push past all these people in a larger wheelchair or just trying to get around with crutches. The elevator also did not work, so these people were not able to get up to the higher floors if they had a pass that allowed them to do so. Apparently, the elevator was working earlier in the day, but I assume it broke down because of a combination of heat and probably so much people using the elevator at any given time. Last year and this year, there were also little trading tables that were set up, and this year there were a lot less trading tables and more vendors, even though they were in the same space. Personally, I feel like they should be in separate spaces, but I digress. The main issue here is that for some reason, the LPS Con staff decided it was a great idea to make every 30 minutes or every hour, anybody who was sitting at a trading table had to get up and go somewhere else so that other people can sit down. And I get it, you know, make it fair so that everybody can sit down if they need to, but this is so inconvenient and a little bit disrespectful, and also is just going to make it so much more crowded when you are yelling at people to get up and move somewhere else. And most of the people sitting down were people's parents who were there with their kids who are like, yeah, I don't care about LPS, I'm just here for my kid. Come on, let them sit down. Give parents a space for them to actually sit down. And this goes back again to people with the mobility aids who were not given proper accommodations for somewhere where they could actually sit down instead of being forced to get up and move somewhere else with their bulkier equipment. That makes it a lot more difficult and not as fast to do so. And one more thing that I want to speak on that personally directly affected me was not being able to get water inside the event. I'm totally used to not eating at all during a convention day. That's fine, that's my own problem. But the thing with water is I absolutely hate buying water. I refuse to buy water unless I absolutely have to, because I think that it's a basic human right that everybody should have free access to. I literally could not find a drinking fountain in the entire space. If there was one, I have no idea where it was. I looked around for it on the 1st and the 2nd floor. It was probably on the 3rd floor where I never saw it. But why would there not be a drinking fountain in the main floor? I don't know. So since I could not find a drinking fountain, I finally decided to go out and buy water from a food truck. Outside, there were 2 food trucks sitting on the blackest asphalt I have ever seen, which made it even hotter than it would have been anywhere else outside. And here's the thing, I get it, if it's in Vegas, it's gonna be hot outside, but at least have the basic common decency to put up a shade structure. There was no shade structure outside where the food trucks are. And I'm not gonna blame the people running the food trucks here. They also seemed very stressed because they were getting so many orders, and they were obviously very backed up with everything, and I have no idea if they even had enough food and beverages that they were selling to accommodate everybody at the convention who needed food and drink. But I was standing in line waiting for a drink, and luckily, not so luckily for me, I have actually passed out from heat exhaustion in the past, so I know the signs to look for when it's about to happen, so I was able to quickly go back inside, stand in the shade, get some air conditioning, and then go back to my space in line before I passed out. But if I stood in line the whole time actually waiting, I absolutely know that I would have fainted, and apparently some people did, but I can't actually confirm that because I never saw it happen, and I don't know if it actually happened to somebody. But if it did, I totally believe it, because I very well could have as well if I wasn't looking for the signs and making sure that I did not. And that goes back to me talking talking about this being a children's event because little kids aren't going to pick up on those things if they need water, if they're getting too hot, if they're going to pass out, things like that. So I finally got my drink. It was expensive, but whatever. I go back inside, I go back up to the second floor to meet somebody, and what do I find but a bucket of free water bottles right after I had purchased my water. Why was that on the second floor? Why was it not on the first floor? Why was it basically hidden? Why were they all in a garbage can? I don't know. But yeah, that's me speaking from my personal experience and personal observations, not speaking from anyone else, and I don't feel like I need to convince you guys either. If you were there, I'm sure you can think back and in hindsight find things about the event that weren't that great. And if you've been on Instagram, I'm sure you've seen all of the screenshots and all of the proof that you need and all of the people sharing their experiences. So that's also why I am making this video, because I want to open up the space for you guys to continue the conversation down below in my comments. And if you had a fun time at the event, don't feel bad about it, because I also had a fun time. I just think that it's important to recognize the things that were good and the things that were bad so that we can understand why improvement is necessary and make events like this safe and inclusive for everybody. And regardless of your feelings towards the actual people behind the events, let's please not go and directly harass anybody, because that just perpetuates hate, and we don't want to do that. We want to facilitate change and give the event and the people behind it an opportunity to grow and change and learn from the event. Although, based on the apology that they released on Instagram, they probably aren't going to listen to us, but I still think it is important to bring it up. Last little thing I want to say, will I be going to LPS Con next year? I don't know as of right now. I feel like the event really needs to change before I decide, and I also want to know who's going to go, because I'm not going for the event itself, I'm going for the people. And as I've already said in every single video I've made about LPS Con, I had a good time because of the people that I met there, because of the people who came up to me and recognized me and gave me something and said they love my videos, and because of all my friends who I got to spend time with. That's why I had such a good time. So if you were there, if you attended, if you saw me, if you met me, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Once again, the Google form to fill out is in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching this video and for listening to everything that I had to say. Stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!